To our backyard. Stay informed with Pacific Mornings.
Maloni, it's currently 7:37. Welcome back to Pacific Mornings on 5:31 PI. I'm Alawai Lala. Now, it's been a big week in both foreign affairs and domestic policy, from New Zealand's government deciding to do a no-show at the Cook Islands' upcoming 60th anniversary celebrations to debates over online gambling reform and classroom design. Labour's education spokesperson Willow-Jean Prime joins us now to discuss what message the government's absence at the Cook Islands celebration sends to the Pacific, how Labour would approach online gambling regulation, and whether scrapping open plan classrooms is really what our school needs, and what's happening with our polytechnics. Kia ora, welcome to the show.
Kia ora, morena.
Morena. Now let's kick off with the Cook Islands. What message do you think the government is sending to the Pacific by not sending a minister representative to the Cook Islands' 60th anniversary of self-governance?
Yeah, well, I think ultimately this is an issue for the government to answer to and explain. They'll obviously have more information about that. But I think broadly speaking, it's really important that we maintain relationships with all of our Pacific Island nations, including the Cook Islands.
Great. Now, turning now to online gambling, Minister Van Velden says her bill will protect vulnerable New Zealanders by regulating the currently unrestricted online gambling market. Do you think this supports stronger safeguards in this area?
No, and we have heard a lot from our spokesperson, Lamonga Sosene, who, is really disappointed with the legislation that the minister had introduced. She's been working really closely with communities and with advocates in the sector, and they say that what the minister has done is disappointing and it doesn't go far enough, and that there's a lot more that could be done. So Labour did not support the legislation that the government has introduced because it's just not enough.
What concerns, if any, does Labour have about this bill, especially for communities disproportionately affected by gambling harm like Māori and Pacific people?
Yeah, that's right. And that is the issue that our spokesperson, Lamonga, has been working really closely with communities, with advocates around gambling. We know that it disproportionately impacts our rangatahi, particularly rangatahi Māori and Pacifica. And so we want to see the minister working, with those communities to put in place the right framework and protections for them, and we just haven't seen that happen.
Now, just turning to education, your Labour's education spokesperson. Now, the Minister, Erica Stanford, is scrapping open plan classrooms, citing overwhelming feedback that they don't work. What's Labour's stance on classroom design?
Well, I think it's really interesting that the minister has come out so forcefully announcing that they are scrapping open plan classrooms when it was the national government who introduced them and required them in the first place, not giving schools at the time any choice about it. And so now this minister is parading around saying that they're scrapping these things. I think it's important that people know that it was in fact a National Party policy in the first place. Labour's position is that we believe schools should have choice, and that it's ultimately for principals and teachers and the schools to make decisions around what would best suit their schools and their students. And so under Labour, they had the option of whether they wanted to use and build these spaces or not. So for the minister to come out and grandstand now saying she's scrapping National's own policy, I find quite funny.
Do you believe the government's one-size-fits-all approach to classroom layouts will help or hinder schools trying to cater to diverse student needs?
I think the government's one-size-fits-all approach in everything that it seems to be pushing onto schools is of real concern. That's certainly what I'm hearing from the sector. And so Labour's position is that schools are best placed to make these decisions, and that they should be properly resourced and staffed to be able to focus on what is going to make the biggest difference for our students, and that's quality teaching, not this debate about classrooms and her very standardized, restricted views on that.
And I just want to turn to flexibility. And now just to the dismantling of Te Pūkenga, the government says this will deliver better outcomes for learners. But from your perspective, what's the real impact likely to be, not only for Pacific students, but you're a proud Northlander, but for people in the regions, for learners in the regions?
I think this is a devastating backwards step by this government, and it's going to have a huge impact in our regions and for our tauira, Māori, Pacifica and rural tauira right across the country. This is going to mean that we are going to have significant job losses and loss of courses and potentially even loss of campuses. So talking to the Northland example specifically, we know under this model, they are not financially viable. That's why we created Te Pūkenga in the first place, so that for vocational training, it was going to be financially viable right across the country. What the minister couldn't promise is that campuses won't close and that these courses won't end. And also saying that what they can do to make themselves financially viable is sell their land. And, that's just such a short-sighted policy and decision by this minister that's going to have a huge impact in our regions.
Do you think Pacific and Māori learners can expect an increase in student fees, seeing that, they already face unfair financial barriers to study? Can our learners expect that with this dismantling of Te Pūkenga?
I think that that is something that could very possibly happen, and that's why I think that the minister has not set this up for success. In order for institutions to be able to continue to provide, courses and learning opportunities, they are going to have to sell their land. They will have to consider things like increasing fees, getting rid of courses, and that's going to take away options for our people to be able to learn and train. And it's really a disappointing step by this minister. She has been opposed to this right from the beginning. I feel like this is a personal vendetta that she has, and she hasn't provided us with any financial information and no guarantees that this won't lead to closures.
And finally, Willow-Jean, just before we wrap up the interview, any final messages you'd like to leave with our audience?
This week we've had some really disappointing statistics where just record numbers of New Zealanders are leaving the country, leaving for Aussie in particular, in the hope for a better future. Labour is focused on jobs, health and homes, and we want to make sure that we can rebuild a great future for our people here in Aotearoa. So just want to acknowledge that it is tough for people out there with the cost of living and this government failing to make any meaningful difference in that space.
Thank you, Whawhetai Lava. And I just got to give credit where credit is due, Willow. I just thought your content team released a hilarious TikTok last night about Christopher Luxon getting on the plane and with the headline about Kiwis leaving to Australia. I just thought that piece of content was gold and it made me laugh a whole lot. So congrats to your content team. Gotta laugh. But hey, that was Willow-Jean Prime, the education spokesperson for the Labour Party and proud Northlander. And I say that because I love Northland. Northland has a special place in my heart. Thank you so much for joining us on the show this morning.
Kia ora.
Now, if you missed any